Well, folks, that's a wrap, as they say. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey. I hope you have learned a lot more about generations and feel much more informed. Again, my name is Jessie Newbern. I'm the CEO of Generations Work. We help organizations bring out the superpowers in each generation at work, as well as bring generational intelligence into an organization for various planning and culture change issues and all sorts of things where it can help. All of my work, ever and always, is based on the foundational work of William Strauss and Neil Howe. And there are many books on generational theory. Phenomenal work. And now that you have watched the videos and have watched them, you probably watched them sequentially, right? You probably watched the boomer and watched the whole thing like through all their years, childhood, all the way through elderhood, and then on to the next one, right? Well, you might want to, because the videos are fairly short, you might want to rewatch them and watch them for one phase of life at a time. So watch the childhood ones, boomer, Xer, millennial, homeland, right? And then watch all the coming of age ones and do this, right? So that will start to help you see like how wildly different these generations experiences are at different phases in their life. And then one of the things that you might actually find really interesting if you want to go a level deeper, and with this, free and pretty easy to digest content, at least I hope it's pretty easy to digest, is what you want to look for is you want to watch the alternating videos. And what I mean by that is there's 4 archetypes. So if we call them, just for example, we call them A, B, C, and D. A and C have a shadow relationship, and B and D have a shadow relationship. So A raises C, and B raises D. But then C raises A, right? And D raises B. So what you can find when, say, for example, you're looking at boomers and millennials, right? You might find with boomers and millennials, like, wow, whoa, boomers are really inward focused, inward, self, orientation toward the self, which is an important thing at the time when they need to do that, right? And that all generations help and all generations are beneficial in their own ways, shapes, and form. Millennials are very outer world focused. They're very civic. They're very selfless, right? That's their thing, right? They're the shadow of the boomer. Likewise, between the silent and homeland, which is the same archetype in the Xers, you'll find these shadow relationships. For example, Xers are raised very underprotected, but homeland and silent generation, they're raised very overprotected. So how a generation is raised, they do the opposite. It's their turn to be midlife adults. So anyway, so that might be an additional way of looking at this information. Now, I know for people who are like auditory and visual learners, this has been fairly easy to watch, listen, learn, whatever. And for people who are kinetic learners, it's a different way to absorb information. I would really encourage you to do things like watch movies from different periods of time and, check and know, oh, this movie was done in this era, and not, you're not looking for movies of like from the Civil War and all per se, because that can't necessarily capture how the generations were. It's capturing how the movie director is predicting or making that set seem. But if you go back in time and watch movies from the 80s or from the 70s or 60s or whatever, and then put the generations in their place because you have their birth years now, and watch and like do something active. So as a kinetic learner, you're going to need to learn kinetically. You're going to need to do things, right? So maybe you talk to people who were from another generation and ask them to talk about their childhood or how they felt about the world or how they felt as a young adult about their future, or find some way that you can take this knowledge, and instead of it just being bookish and words and things to memorize or whatever, potentially, that you can actually move it into your body and move it into action in terms of how you learn. So again, thank you all so much for coming on this journey with us. We love sharing information about generations and getting people talking about generations and the archetypes. Anything that you can do over on our website to help us and our various social media channels with likes, follows, shares, comments, all that kind of stuff. It's super helpful. Thank you so much. Again, thanks for coming on this journey. Enjoy the ride. It's just the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg, as I like to say. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.